So let's fast forward to just a couple months ago when the governor shut down all the gyms and basically shut down our state. Let us know what you were thinking at that time.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to start it. So I have a girlfriend who has an autoimmune disorder. So to me, the second I heard that, that's terrifying because she always struggles with things.
What's her autoimmune disorder, if you don't mind me?
It's like dermatomyositis. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, but it's basically her body's cells. She has an overactive immune system. So her body's cells will attack her own body, and it makes her CPK numbers spike, and she's in pain. Sometimes she wakes up with rashes on her body, and she's trying all these different treatments. But
she could go from perfectly fine to
She was 3 years ago. She's a personal trainer in phenomenal condition. She looks like a top level athlete. She takes care of herself. She trains jiu-jitsu. She does all these things she had this happen to her, and now she struggles to get out of bed in the morning.
That's terrible.
We've gone to tons of different people in the medical field, and the worst part is there's so many unknowns.
Yeah.
They just don't know. No. So they're like, hey, we can put you on this chemotherapy drug to suppress your immune system. And that just terrifies her. She's like, man, I'm going to load my body up with these extremely toxic things that are going to suppress my immune system so that, okay, although this might be a little bit better, now all of a sudden I get influenza and I'm horribly hospitalized because I have a suppressant.
Yeah, even die.
So when you guys heard about COVID-19, you were thinking, whoa.
I took about as serious as you could.
Yeah.
So most people don't know this. This is going to be the first time this is going to be public. I lived at my gym for 6 weeks because I was too afraid to go home because I had been around so many people. We have 2 dorm rooms built into my academy. We have fighters from all over the world that come in. UFC fighters fly in. We've had people from England and all over. They fly in and stay. So we already have a setup. So when this went down, I was terrified for Stacy, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to play this ultra safe. We shut the gym down. We quarantined. We closed everything off completely, and then I stayed there. I was like, I'll look over the academy. I can clean. I can still do the business side. I can go over numbers. I can do what I have to do, and then I know she's safe. So that's about as serious as you can take it.
So what changed?
So okay, that happens. We quarantine. We start locking down. I'm a very passionate, obsessive person. I have to be putting my mental energy to things. So the second we close down,
either strangling somebody out or looking at
exactly.
research.
If I'm not strangling someone or teaching someone how
I
to
don't strangle people, but I will strangle the heck out of a task.
I have to be. I'm that type of person. I have to be going.
Why you're successful.
Yeah, I have a feeling of success by constant motion. I'm willing to take on challenges and obstacles, but I don't like being stagnant.
You cannot feel not overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I know the feeling.
Yeah. No.
So time goes on.
So
you're there.
We shut it down. So then instantly I said, all I'm going to do is study this. I'm going to figure out exactly what's going on. This subject matter is going to be my new focus.
You obsessed on this.
So you basically became a doctor in 4 weeks?
I mean, yeah. I feel like if I say that on video, I'm going to instantly discredit everything I say.
That's right. So no,
here's what it is.
You studied some serious epidemiology.
I've learned more about how infectious diseases are reported throughout history and than I ever wanted to learn in my entire life.
Absolutely.
But I said, if I'm going to make a decision in it's a pandemic, okay? We all don't know what's going on because now we obviously see it differently.
Yeah.
But I said, I'm going to be as careful as possible. I'm going to look at all the data. I'm going to reach out to everybody that I have in my network and people beyond my network, and I'm going to compile a proper perspective here. And when I have that perspective, I'll make good decisions. So I want, one of the things that I want people to know going in is I didn't know if it was as bad as they said, if it was worse than what they said, or if it wasn't as bad. All I cared about is let me get closer to the truth. So I started dissecting this. So let me give you a quick example of how it started to fall apart. So the London Imperial model was the one that predicted that up to 2.2 million Americans would die and 500,000 in the UK if we took no action and if this disease was allowed to spread. That's a devastating number. So instantly I said, oh my God, that's devastating. Where does this come from? So then I started looking at the London Imperial model, which within 2 weeks adjusted way before lockdowns could have been adjusted from 2.2 million down to 250,000. That's a massive change. So it perked my interest even more. And I said, okay, let's look into this. So I didn't know that the gentleman, Neil Ferguson from the London Imperial model, he had made multiple predictions over a long period of time. He had made predictions on swine flu, on bird flu, on mad cow, on foot and mouth disease. I'm going to give you just one example. From bird flu, he predicted that up to 200 million people were going to die.
That's like the Spanish flu.
Around the world,
wipe us out.
Worldwide.
Okay, and it was around 60 million or something, or
less than 10,000 ever died.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay,
No.
okay.
The
Wow.
Spanish flu is the one that wiped out a
Spanish
lot.
flu.
You're
Okay.
thinking about the 1918
1918
Okay.
public.
which so many people compared this to, which we need to address at some point. But imagine,
like you already
imagine
said.
if I
Less than
said
10,000 when he said-
200 million, up
That's
to
a big-
200
yeah.
million. You would react one way, right?
Yeah.
You
Oh,
might
yeah.
Lock
shut
it
the
down.
nation.
Lock
Shut it down.
Shut it
Yeah.
down.
Then it's less than 10,000. Okay, he was a little bit
A
off.
bit of an overreaction.
Mad cow, he was way off. Foot and mouth disease, he's way off. So maybe, at
Why
least
is this
me.
guy still making predictions?
That's so what I went to next was, okay,
the question.
maybe this guy makes a lot of accurate predictions, but at least in regards to infectious disease, he has been way off before. So I'm going to take what he says with a grain of salt, and I'm going to make sure I watch this closely. But again, we stayed quarantined. Let's play it safe. Right? But like I said, if I had taken advice from me before you told me you were going to build me a home for $10,000, I got there and you said, James, it's actually going to be $200 million. I might question you in the future.
Yeah.
I might
Yeah.
say, I'm not quite sure if I'm
Great
gonna...
analogy.
Okay,
Great
so
analogy.
yeah, you got to make it so people understand that are
Yep.
listening at home. So then I was like, let's fast forward this. So then instantly it changed from within, like I said, within 2 weeks, it went from 2.2 million down to 250,000, and then it changed again to down to a seasonal flu number. So I started looking into why is this changing, right? So how are we figuring these statistics out, which is the crucial thing. So the two numbers that there's I'll start with one of the main things that terrified people. It was the mortality rate. 3 to 10% mortality rate is what they told people.
That's what they told.
That's
yep.
terrifying.
Yes.
That means if you get this disease, you have a 3 to 10% chance of dying. That is alarming.
Yeah, 10% of what, 360 million Americans?
Yeah.
A lot.
Yeah, that's 36 million people
Yeah,
would have
that's
died.
a lot of people.
So I said, okay, where does that number come from? Because that's of crucial importance. And then I figured out all they did was took the hospitalizations, because that was the only people they were testing, versus the deaths that they were attributing to COVID. They took those numbers and derived mortality rate. That is never the case in any study of infectious disease ever. You always take into account asymptomatic cases, mild cases, moderate cases, cases that are
100% right.
treated at home, cases that go undetected because they're not severe, right? So let's go ahead and give them a benefit of the doubt. Let's assume that they only did that because they didn't know the other things. Then you should present the information that the 3 to 10% mortality rate is only using those two numbers, and that it's probably so far from reality, especially when we have decades of experience with coronaviruses. Decades. And coronaviruses, over time, were just lumped into flu-like symptoms and were actually often mild. They knew that coronaviruses, generally speaking, were more mild than a bad influenza. So, okay, play it safe. Lockdown, quarantine. I did the same. But then push to the public that is a 3 to 10% mortality rate. I'm going to show you how quickly I figured out that was a disaster. The 2017 flu in America, hospitalized per the CDC, 959,000 people, killed over 60,000. The mortality rate on that would be over 6%. So if I just jumped on there and said, hey, the 2017 flu had a mortality rate of 6%, you better lock yourself in your homes for all the upcoming flus, that would be criminal. Because you wouldn't be painting perspective. Because you have to figure out that the flu, they estimate between 30 to 40 million infections because of all the asymptomatic, because of all the mild, because of the people that just stay at home. Your grandma gives you chicken noodle soup. Why? Because with a virus, you rarely treat the virus.
They made this sound like everybody that gets it is ending up in the hospital on a ventilator, and you're almost certainly going to die from this.
100%.
And so you quickly figured out that this isn't Armageddon.
No, so I started taking it apart and going, wait a second. Because like I said, in a 2-week period, I looked at, okay, that's how they've derived mortality rate, which is nuts. And if I did the same thing for that 2017 flu, it would have been double. It would have been 6% versus the 3%. But I wouldn't do that. So then I started saying to myself, well, why are the experts doing that? Because the people at the top absolutely know this. There is no way that Dr. Fauci or any of the other experts did not know that when they were presenting that information,
had to know.
They know. So like I said, I'm obsessive. So I watched every single White House briefing in its entirety without missing one, from start to finish. I didn't even want to see the media reporting of it. Nope.
I feel sorry.
I watched the unedited from the moment they started speaking until the moment they stopped. So then at one time, they addressed 2 points that were absolutely crucial to me starting to unravel this story. Number one, at one point, Dr. Birx got on there and said, hey, she used an iceberg as an example. She said, I want to be clear. we may only be catching the absolute tip of the iceberg, and we might be only showing you the results from a very small portion, and there could be this giant underlying group that could be asymptomatic or mild. So I went, okay, there's hope. They're starting to tell people the actual reality of this, right? But then why we didn't carry on to that when, like, across the nation, Stanford, the University of Southern California, 2 places in Massachusetts, New York, tons of places started putting out antibody testing, which would show you the amount of cases that were not hospitalized, that had already experienced COVID-19, that had recovered naturally, and it would give you a perspective, which is what all of us should just be trying to create in a pandemic. We don't know. I'm not going to say that I know. Nobody should say that we know, but we should be aiming to paint perspective, because people that are going to hide behind the idea that they were just playing on the side of safety. What about all the destruction we were doing outside of the virus? You have to take that into account. The world wasn't on hold. Businesses are going to be destroyed. Mental health is going to deteriorate. We're going to push levels of poverty. We're going to move trillions of dollars that are going to need to be paid back. All of these things are taking place. Yeah. So if you want to buy in the fact, well, we just wanted to play it safe. Safe has to be perspective. There's no such thing as fully safe. Nope. I drove here today.
Yep.
There's a certain amount of risk that I just took.
Yep. We just heard about you getting choked out a minute ago, too. I'd say that's not very safe.
In anything you do in all of life, there is risk. Flu season happens. It's a season. It happens. If you do not take care of your physical and mental health, you are more at risk of dying.
That's what we always say, too, is no healthy body will bear disease and no unhealthy body will bear health. That's it.
Yes.
It's as easy as that.
Yes, and it's a personal responsibility, and it's 100%. A responsibility for yourself. It's a responsibility to help your family, and it's a responsibility to educate our communities to be healthier. So back to the mess here. You got the mortality rate that's so far from reality. Then you have things like antibody testing that no one wants to cover. That we just we're leaving that. Well,
don't talk about herd mentality.
Yeah, exactly. The studies aren't complete, right? So they start leaving it off the table. And like I said, I understand caution. I don't understand misleading people when we're destroying all these things. So then the second thing was massively telling. Was at one point Dr. Birx, and I'm sure you'll be able to pull this clip online. I don't remember which White House briefing it was. But she said, we are taking a very liberal approach in the way that we're classifying COVID deaths. And it's anyone with COVID at the time of death can be deemed a COVID death.
Yeah, that was telling.
Let's break that down.
Yeah.
Okay, so at first when I heard that, I said, no, I didn't catch that.
Wait,
right.
What?
There's no way. Imagine if, there's no way. That couldn't be the case. So I have a friend that works at Sparrow Hospital. Once I started publicly questioning this a little bit, and this is before I started speaking out. I just started saying, hey, I want to get in touch with some people that are on the front lines. If you're a nurse on the front lines, if you're a doctor, if you're directly involved in this, please get in contact with me. I'm trying to create perspective here. So I had a friend at Sparrow Hospital reach out to me and told me that people that died in a car accident were tested for COVID. It came back positive, and that went into the COVID number. And I still didn't want to believe this. I sat back. I said, okay, I'm not going to accept this information. It's too early on. I'm not the person that just shoots from the hip. So then I'm watching an ABC press conference with the Illinois Public Health Director. And the Illinois Public Health Director, on her podium, goes, I want to be very clear with how we're classifying COVID deaths. We are classifying a COVID death as anyone at the time of death with a positive COVID test is going to go in.
So everybody, that clears it up once and for all. I mean, you should all already know this, but it's not a theory. It is fact that they were classifying COVID deaths as anyone who had it at the time of their death. It's not an arguable. It's not a debatable topic. It's fact.
And so that's like when you go into your journey of standing up. It was easy for you because you did the research. You're like, this is BS. I'm done. The data's there. I've read it. I studied it. I got all these extra sources that are coming in, verifying that what I found is true. Then you're like, I got to release it. I'm standing up.
100%.
This is the Lantern Podcast.